Hello and welcome to the 13th webinar in our 2017 SAP SuccessFactors HR Live Demo Series. Today's session is on Employee Central Payroll. My name is Jessie Labenwolf and I'm going to cover some brief housekeeping. We'll be addressing your questions at the end of the demonstration, but you're encouraged to submit questions as you think of them using the Q&A panel on the left side of your console. If you experience any technical issues, please let me know via that same Q&A panel and I'll help you out shortly. Today's session is being recorded and we'll be sending a link to the replay of this webinar in the coming weeks. Keep an eye out for it in your email. And finally, I'd like to highlight the resource list, which should be on the right side of your console. This has a few assets for you to download as well as a link to register for the full webinar series. You can access this list by pressing on the green icon at the bottom of your console. And with that, we're ready to dive in. Today's webinar will be led by Daryl Liu and Claudia Freeman. Daryl is a core HR and payroll specialist, and Claudia is a principal solutions consultant here at SAP SuccessFactors. Daryl, the floor is yours.
Great, thank you. Welcome, everyone. We're glad that you could help actually participate in today's session. We're very excited to present to you some really great news regarding the Employee Central Payroll product. Before we start with the demonstration, we wanted to take a quick step back and introduce you to the context for which we'll be delivering this information. So if you could go ahead and progress to the next slide, that would be great. We want to go ahead and let you know that although the topic of today's session is Employee Central Payroll, we wanted to give you a visual in terms of how it fits in within the overall solution suite and our landscape. The most important thing to note is that the payroll solution is intimately integrated with our core HCM. And as a matter of fact, Claudia will be showing you a couple of examples where HR data is leveraged within the payroll solution. So we wanted to provide that with you as well. If you go to the next slide, we're going to go ahead and give you a little idea in terms of some of the highlights around our solution. For those of you who may not already know, what SAP SuccessFactors did is we leveraged our legacy payroll solution that we had on-premise and we ported it to the cloud. It's been in the marketplace in the U.S. for over 20 years and has enjoyed a long and varied legacy with respect to the number of customers we have around the globe. The greatest news is that we continue to innovate in the solution. We'll show you a couple of examples of that. Some of the highlights that we want you to be mindful of today are those that are listed on this particular slide. For those people who may be interested or know a little bit about our Employee Central product, which is a core HR solution, everything has an effective date. This is especially important when we're looking at the core payroll solution as we have automatic retroactive calculations. These can significantly reduce the amount of manual input and streamline as well as provide visibility into your overall reporting and analytics. We won't go through all of these, but again, we wanted you to be mindful of these particulars. If we go to the next slide, we'll show a couple of different examples in terms of, again, some of our highlights. The proposed solution that we're looking at in Employee Central Payroll is considered in-house or an on-premise solution, but know that through the SAP SuccessFactors solution or ecosystem, we have a variety of partners that enable our customers to consume the payroll engine and the solution any way that they'd like. So it has a high degree of flexibility. There are a number of deployment options that are available through our partners, as well as SAP SuccessFactors. So again, this can be tailored specifically to either your local and or a combination of your global needs. Well, enough about the background. What we probably want to do next is get on with the demonstration. So what I'll do right now is hand it over to Claudia, and she'll take us through the rest of the presentation. Thanks.
Thank you, Daryl. If we can just progress to the next slide. Next one. Okay, great. Thank you. So as Daryl said, we're going to be talking about our Employee Central Payroll solution, but also where it connects with our core HR solution, Employee Central. So what you'll see from this particular graphic depiction of what happens in the Employee Central Payroll solution is that as part of our core HR system of record, we have all of the employee details that are being tracked. And again, as I said, the system of record, so it's feeding the payroll system any changes that have affected the employee record. The next step after that culmination of data comes over from the different areas is going to be calculating the gross to net calculation. The next step then begins the post-payroll processes. The post-payroll processes include the direct deposit file, so updating the banks for direct deposit, cutting checks. You can do that at any location as long as you have the hardware and your check stock. That's one of the transactions as part of the post-payroll processing. We also have the capability to generate the tax reports, both quarterly, annual, and monthly SUI reports. And we always put in a little note about the ability to outsource. We have some clients and customers who prefer to outsource any direct deposit or checks. It's certainly not necessary, but you can if you wish, or if it's a function you're currently outsourcing, but it can be done as part of the solution as well. Now when we look at the other pieces of the post-payroll process, it starts to take us to the financial solution. Posting the payroll processes to the general ledger for update. If you're using SAP Financials, we maintain that integration for you, and it's already pre-integrated to pull the payroll results and update the general ledger. We do have interfaces that can be used to link to third-party financial systems as well to ensure that your payroll results also update the general ledger if using a third-party financial system. Then additionally, you can see that we have the payroll history that is available for the analytics tool to be able to pull in payroll data, as well as any standard reporting that's delivered with the payroll system as well. So this is just, as I said, a graphical depiction of what happens in the payroll system with pulling information from our core HR Employee Central solution, any benefits data, time data, any other information that could potentially come from a third party as well, feeding it to payroll and walking through the calculation to the post-payroll processes. Now I'm going to go ahead and get right into the demonstration and show you the solution. So please let me know if you can see me sharing this, Jessie.
All right. Ooh, we're starting to buffer and initialize. All right. There we go. We can see what you see. Great.
Thank you. So what we're looking at here is from this perspective for our tour of the Employee Central Payroll solution today, I am using the solution as a payroll professional. And I've logged into the home page here where you can see the layout is very similar to that which you might experience with a mobile device, where you have different tiles that you can configure based on your role within the organization and the types of information that you interact with in the system, or different information that is coming in for you to review and approve, or maybe even just an informational update. And that would come to you through your to-do list. We do also deliver some mobile apps that would enable you to also manage any to-do lists as well. So we've compartmentalized the areas on the home page to make it very easy for the user to find the area of the solution that they need to access, including if they have a team and they want to manage any of their team activities and direct reports. Or as you can see down here from the My Info, they are obviously an employee of the organization, so they have self-service capabilities as well, regardless of their particular role in the organization. Now, as I mentioned, Shane, my user here, is a payroll administrator. Now, as I'm accessing different areas of the solution, I would like you to keep in mind that even though I'm in as a payroll professional, If I was to go and perform a particular function like giving somebody a pay increase as a manager, the only thing that would change is my security as to who I can see and what I can see. So we can get down to the field level security, and we can also secure through role-based permissions what people are able to access, read only, edit, change, etc. in the system. So the nice feature is that even though I'm in as a payroll administrator showing you a pay rate increase coming from Employee Central, how you might update the payroll solution, if a manager was to do that, the only difference in that experience would be that they would see their direct reports or their direct report subordinates as well, but the process is the same as what we're looking at in the payroll from the payroll professional standpoint. So what I'd like to do is just also tell you about the navigation from the drop-down here, so you can navigate throughout the solution, and you can see as the payroll professional, he's got a few different payroll navigation items highlighted in his list. I could also come right here and type in any sort of action or person, making it very easy for me to find what I need to do or find the person that I need to interact with in the system. Also, additionally, to the home page, you can personalize the home page. You can personalize the categories of information, the tiles. Also, as an organization on the whole, you can also tailor the color coding and the graphics to make it a very personalized home page for your users that is specific to your organization's information. Additionally, within these tiles, you can embed videos, you can embed tickers of information, you can also have links to third parties through these tiles, and you also can have additional information that is, for example, analytic type of details around what an individual might want to track based on their role within the organization. So I'm going to just go ahead and look at from the employee's record specifically. I'm going to select a particular individual. Now, again, remember, I could search for an action or a person up here, or I can simply put in the name of the individual and have them pop up right from my list. So now I have the information is going to pop up, and I'm going to see my employee's employee record. You can see that this also is very easily organized and compartmentalized from personal information, payroll and benefits, employment information, and then as we move further in the file, touching on our best-of-breed talent management. So one thing I'd like to point out right under the personal information is you'll notice the American flag here under global information as well as national ID. So this is indicative of where the employee resides, which also, due to the global capability of our solution, enables us to also track all of the regulatory and compliant pieces of information that are required by the different countries in which we have country localizations. So that means as we have a different employee, say in Germany or the UK or Shanghai, that we're going to see the flag of their home country of origin. And not only that, but the currency converter. We can also see the date formats, the address formats, as I mentioned, the regulatory and compliance pieces of information that need to be tracked so that you can generate the compliance reports for that particular country. Additionally, we would see the formats change of what type of information we need to collect. So as I scroll down, this is just grabbing that information as you would expect on the employee. And we have Employee Central Time, where we can have time off and different types of leaves that are tracked. And we also have timesheet capabilities in our Employee Central Time solution as well. If I pop over to payroll and benefits, it now brings me down to the payroll information. We're going to take a little tour of this in just a moment. But prior to that, I'd like to point out up here the Take Action area. So when I select Take Action, this now lets me navigate through different types of actionable items for this employee, and I can also jump to other areas of the solution right down here from these links. So we make it very, very easy to find the people you need to, perform the action you need to, and then move to the next task at hand. If I'm going to update information on this particular employee in our core Employee Central solution, I can simply come into the Take Action and change that update. So what I'm seeing here is an effective date. Effective dates are very important in the entire solution because as I make a change on the employee's record here, as it will pertain to a pay rate increase, I can use a historical date going back in time. I can use today's date, or I can use a future date. If I was to use the effective date a few pay periods prior, payroll would recognize that effective date was a past date and would automatically retro-calculate through the prior pay periods to that next pay period paycheck. Additionally, you can even have that itemized on the earning form, your pay slip, to show that that's a retro calculation outside of their basic pay. So the employee doesn't have to do any guesswork about what was retro calculated for an increase that was made in the past. Also within the retro calculations, as it goes back over multiple periods of time, it can also pick up other changes. For example, if there were additional benefit deductions that needed to be taken out or time considerations over that retro calculation. So that's a very robust feature of the payroll solution. In this regard, I'm going to go ahead and select a future date that we know that this individual, Maya, will be getting an increase. Now, if I was to give her a promotion, I can update her organizational structure information. So the organizational structure information is also critical to payroll because it can drive different rules around how payroll should treat this individual when paying them. If there are certain rules, if they're in a union, for example, if they are part-time versus full-time, all of that feeds in and updates that information. As it changes, it will affect payroll, and payroll will pick up any change on the employee information. If I want to give an increase, I would simply come down here to my compensation information and take a look at her current information on her record, and I can see the pay frequency in which she's paid. I can also see what her current base salary is. We see she also receives meal allowances and a transportation allowance. So I could simply come in here to the calculator and change the amount, which would update the percentage, or update the percentage, which would then update the amount. So I'm going to go ahead and give her a 3.8% increase. And when I save that, it auto-calculates what the new amount is going to be. But as you'll notice, it always maintains what the previous information was. That makes it very easy when you go back and look at history. It also makes it easy for those people who are participants in approving this change to see what the previous information is or was and what it's going to be. Now, as I scroll down here, you'll also see some areas for recurring payments and deductions. I could simply click Add and put in additional payments or deductions. We have a very strong tool called our Pay Code Configurator, and it's really a wizard-driven system that enables you to create different earnings and deductions while managing all of the facets of that earning or that deduction, such as taxation, permissibility, the valuation, the eligibility of who is eligible to receive this particular payment or deduction. So when I go in and I hit save, now it has popped up a workflow notification so that I can put in my comments and I can also show my workflow participants. So now I know who the next level approvers are, and we can see here that the end result lies with the HR representative. Now I move that through the workflow, and from that perspective, it will now route to the next approver in line. Once they have approved it, it will move to the next approver, and it will then update on the effective date that I put in for that pay increase. So that's just simply put going through a quick view of how we could update some information on the employee record that would then affect payroll. So now we'll switch gears, kind of spin our chair around from the HR record view to the payroll view. And where I'd like to go from there is to what we call the Payroll Control Center. The Payroll Control Center was designed as a payroll dashboard for payroll professionals to keep track of the different steps within each process of the payroll. Additionally, you can keep track of the different errors that are popping up. So it's essentially giving the capability of auditing at the time of entry. As information is updated on the employees, if there's anything that will affect payroll as an error, it will be flagged so that the appropriate person can review that and update the information to make sure that you can run payroll clean without errors, or if you do have errors, that you have an easy way to go about making an update and a change on that particular error. So let's start with the Payroll Control Center and all of the steps of the payroll process. You can see we're looking at current processes. We also could look at any upcoming processes, or if we have any history, look at those completed processes as well. If you think back to the PowerPoint where we started, and I talked about the information on the employee, their benefits, their time data, and maybe any other third-party data that's coming in, that's what's happening in that pre-payroll process. It's enabling you to run a test run or a simulation, which will not affect your production run, to also check for errors. So before I get into the steps, let's talk about where these errors come from. We deliver a number of policies built into payroll that say, if you see this, then please flag it as an error so that we can make sure that all of the appropriate information is also on the payroll, is part of the payroll process, so we don't have any issues with anybody not getting paid because information is missing. You also can add to those policies. So if there's something particular where you want that to be flagged as part of your policy monitoring, that can also be added in the Payroll Control Center so that you're sure that it is monitoring for any of those possible issues that could interrupt the payroll flow for a person or a group of employees. So now let's take a look at the pre-payroll checks process. And what this is telling us is that there are 3 steps involved with the pre-payroll process, and it's showing us what ones have been run through. And we can see they've all been run through. There's the date and time stamp. So we created that test payroll run, and we initiated the policies, so those things that we've told payroll to flag and identify if that exists or information does not exist, as the case might be, and to monitor those details. Well, the system did that, and it uncovered 6 errors, and it decided that this payroll professional was the person who's in charge of all of that. Now, we just did that, obviously, in our system, but you can identify who the appropriate person or people are to receive different types of flagged issues or alerts, and that person would then be the person who is getting those audit notifications so that it's going to the right person. It's hopefully eliminating the issue of any bottlenecks and enabling that to get rectified as quickly as possible. I'm going to get into editing the errors in a moment when we get up to the alerts area, but for right now I want to keep going with the dashboard view. What you'll notice here is that we also get a nice synopsis of details from the previous pay run. So it gives us really a quick glance at this pay period versus last pay period. It does that for the gross amounts, employee statistics, so we can see if there were some major organizational changes, if there had been a lot of new hires, if we had a lot of retro calculations. So it's enabling us to get a glimpse and answer some questions right away on that particular dashboard. Now, when I come out of the pre-payroll, I now come down to the production payroll. You'll notice that there are still 6 errors. That's because I haven't cleaned any of them up. So if I don't clean them up, they'll move forward to the next process, so nobody can just sweep them under the rug and not take care of that. Also, you'll notice that there are 7 steps in the production payroll. When I highlight that, I can see those steps, beginning and starting the payroll, so taking it out of test mode and actually beginning a production payroll run. This is actually running that payroll, so if we go back to that PowerPoint, that's running that gross to net calculation. Beyond that calculation, it now generates the payroll journal and simulates, so again, a test run of the posting results to financials. So we make sure that we can take a look at that simulation before we actually release that for update to the general ledger. And then again, excuse me, trigger finger there. And then again, we have the data validation as well. So it's making sure that there's nothing else that we need to review. Now, when we go to the next couple of steps, I won't get into each bubble here. I'll just kind of mention here that the next post-payroll process is that transmission of direct deposit and payslip information. So it's enabling us to create those transactions that generate those files for the direct deposit. It also is enabling us to print checks if you wanted to do that. And then finally, it's transmitting that posting to accounting. So giving an update to the general ledger with all the payroll results once payroll has been processed and is at the final stage. We also talked a bit about those alerts. So now let's go take a look at those. If we get some notifications, we can have that information pop up here in the pre-payroll process. And we see we've got a few categories. That's, again, a nice area where you can compartmentalize what those issues are, route them accordingly to the right person, or you can also you can also route those yourself if you wanted to give someone the capability to do that. So I'm going to go ahead and check this one. I'm checking the main bank account information. I can see the employee that it's affecting. They did not select their payment information. Do they want direct deposit or do they want to receive a check? Once I've made that update or forwarded it to the individual or to the right person, I can tell the system a number of things. If it's validated, I can forward it to someone. I can tell the system a solution's been applied or set it to resolution. So I'm going to go ahead and show you again integration right from the Payroll Control Center to Employee Central. So I know Julian needs to have his payment information updated, and now that can bring me right down to his employee file. I can go right down to the payroll and benefits area, and I can update that payroll information. You can see that it is blank. I have no payment data, so I could make that update, and then I could clear that error so that Julian can then move forward in the payroll process. Now, even though Julian doesn't have the appropriate information and he's somewhat held back by this to be able to go through the final processing of payroll, that doesn't mean that we need to hold the whole payroll back for that pay frequency. We can continue to move everybody through payroll while making a correction on an individual and then move them through the payroll as well. So while we're in this area, I want to go back to my previous user and look at Maya again and kind of talk to you a little bit about the payroll area too of some of the information that we're tracking. So on Maya, we can see that there are a number of different tax areas in which we would be tracking. So residence work tax area, we see that we can do additional withholding for the W-4. I just even spoke with a prospective customer who's doing tipping, and we have tip indicators. Our unemployment state. We also can see tracking the information around garnishments. So this individual has a garnishment on their record, and we can look at that garnishment order, and additionally we can look at the order, the documentation, and make any adjustments that need to be made. So I spoke briefly about our pay code configurator when you're creating earnings and deductions. Obviously, a garnishment is a deduction on this person's record. She has two here, child support and estate tax levy. As part of our solution, we deliver garnishment processing. We will set up the prioritization so that the system knows not only the prioritization in which the garnishments should be taken, but also your disposable income rules. So it will ensure that the employee takes home the appropriate amount of pay without draining their entire paycheck. It will also keep track of those rules. Now, when you have an earning or a deduction, you can set up end dates or you can set up amounts. So in this regard, you could set up an end date of when the system should stop taking that deduction, or you can set up an amount where when that has been achieved, it will discontinue taking the deduction as well. So what you'll notice up here is that I can navigate through earnings and deductions, tax details, garnishments. We have a full year-end processing, which enables you also to balance any changes that might have happened through the system or view the W-2, which we'll get into in a moment. So now I want to pop over to the pay statement. Now, as I mentioned, I'm in as the payroll professional. I'm looking at her pay statement, but this is how an employee would also access their pay statement. This is how it comes delivered, but we do have a check format configurator so that you can tailor it to be more toward your pay statement layout. You also can put in different graphics. So let's take a look at this pay statement for Maya Cooper. We see the banner along the top that lets us know who she is and gives us a brief synopsis of her pay. We can see now it's broken out into the different areas of earnings, taxes, pre-tax, and post-tax. So when I showed you getting a salary increase, we saw that there was earnings and deductions of salary, car allowance, meal allowance, and for this particular pay run, there was holiday pay. We also can see that we can track year-to-date totals. So this is what we're tracking on the paycheck, but additionally, if you need other accumulators around deductions or earnings, you can use quarter-to-date, month-to-date, year-to-date, fiscal year-to-date, so you have different accumulators that can also be assigned as well. As I scroll over here to the taxes, we're tracking the federal and the state information. We work with a company called BSI that maintains for the USA all of the local, state, and federal tax legislation changes. Anything that's going to affect the taxes for employees, that will be sent to the system, which can then be run through the development system and then in the production system to ensure tax compliance with any changes that have happened. You'll also notice over here we have the pre-tax. So we've got a few healthcare deductions, and then we've got some post-tax deductions, such as those garnishments, as well as she's donating to a charity as well. We don't have anything under arrears, but we do arrears processing. You can also track leave details on the check if you wish, and you can see this is a bank transfer, which is a direct deposit detail. You also can send in different communications as well. So maybe if open enrollment starts next month, or you want to wish people happy holidays on their holiday season check. You can put in different communications as well right on the paycheck. And you can see that they can print it or they can download that as well. Okay, another function that can be updated in the payroll area is under payment information, which is where an employee can identify if they want to receive a check or they want to get a direct deposit advice. So here we have the bank transfer and the details of the routing number. We do not limit you on the direct deposit accounts. We do generally say the best practice is no more than 10. I've mentioned that to a lot of customers, and they balk at that and say, well, we wouldn't even want that many. So it's flexible, but it really can be something that is selected by the organization's business processes, or you can select that you'd like to get a check as well. So the employee can come in here and make updates to this through self-service. Again, for the ease of the presentation, I'm staying in as the payroll administrator, but this would be the same way that an employee could come in and update their information as well. Okay, the next thing that I'd like to point out to is more of the ability to administer the payroll process. So as I come into another area of a payroll homepage for this payroll professional, I can see a number of payroll tools, ability to administer payroll, and the reporting and analytics around payroll as well. So what I'd like to point out first is the ability to use our off-cycle workbench. The off-cycle workbench enables you to run a manual check, an off-cycle check for one individual. We certainly have the capabilities to run off-cycle checks, off-cycle pay runs for more than one person, but this might be, an example might be for an employer in California where somebody terminates and they need to produce a manual check to them by the end of the day. Or somebody was missed getting a bonus and you don't want them to have to wait till the next pay period and you'd like to cut the bonus check for the individual. So what we would be looking at here is the payment history, so we can see all of the payment history for this employee. And when we come over to the payroll tab, now we have a drop down here which is user-defined, so it would be specific to your organization's types of payroll reasons. We can see for bonus reason, for a holiday bonus, for an advance payment, an adjustment, even just a regular on-demand check. Maybe there was a new hire, something happened and they didn't end up getting their check in the check run, and you need to create that. I'm going to use the example of a bonus for this individual, and I'm going to say that they haven't run the payroll for this person in a little while, so I'm going to run back in time a little bit. And I'm going to say we want a special pay run for this person. So I'm going to say $1,500 bonus, and I'm going to click Start Payroll. Starting the payroll is actually running an entire payroll process for this one individual. You can see that it calculated that. It gave me the amount to be paid, and I can look at that display log to make sure that that looks good. Or I could also go. Excuse me, I jumped out of there. I could also go to the view where I can look at the pay statement to see how that was calculated and what that would look like. I can also determine if it's going to be cut as a manual check or if I'm going to follow the employee's bank details direction or I'm going to provide the payment a different way. In addition to the off-cycle payroll run, we also can go through replacing or reversing a payment. So I can put in a new check. You can see again from the drop-down different reasons. Those are all configurable to your own reasons. but maybe it was stolen or it went through a pocket in the dryer, ripped during printing, whatever the reason is, we can track that and run a replacement for that particular pay run or a reversal. Maybe we found out last minute that somebody terminated and we want to back out their direct deposit and just give them a final check, so we want to reverse that. We would simply select the pay run that would be affecting that area, would run down here, and I would be able to tell what the reversal was being used for, and then reverse that pay run. So the off-cycle workbench lets you create those manual checks very easily by running all facets of the payroll solution. Now you'll notice here there's a number of different tiles and information and even the international. As I mentioned, we do have a global payroll solution with country localizations for all of those countries in which we have already configured those employee, HR, and payroll requirements. But we also have a tax reporter, which enables us to create the quarterly and annual tax reports as well as monthly SUI reports per state. And we also have, as you can see, the quarterly and annual correction reports. So if I wanted to run a tax form for an individual, I could simply put in their employee number, or if I'm just doing singular work for us today in our presentation, but of course you can run it by, as you can see here, tax company code. If there are multiple, you could have the different tax company codes and the pay frequencies. You'll notice I'm running a simulation. I can certainly run a production run or put in filing dates, and when I select the online simulation, it will then run a test run of that particular W-2 wage and tax statement for me to access. Now when I click into the forms, I can select that copy, and it will show me that W-2 for that individual. So employees can also go in through self-service and make a reissue request for W-2s as well as update their own W-4 detail, and we saw the direct deposit capabilities as well. So what you'll notice too from the home page is that we have many facets to our very robust global payroll solution. So we have tools that enable mass updates and the pay code configurator as well as configuring rules. We also have different areas in which to administer payroll and deliver compliance reports as well as standard payroll reports, as well as create analytics using payroll results for any sort of a report where you need to include payroll with other types of data. You can also pull in third-party third-party data through our analytics tool if you're using any third parties as well. So this is where I was going to stop the presentation to just give you a flavor and a tour of some of the Employee Central capabilities, updating to payroll, and the payroll capabilities in Employee Central Payroll. So I will pause there, and Jesse, I will move on to let you take it over.
Excellent. Thanks so much for that demonstration, Claudia. I'm briefly putting up a little poll to let the audience know if you're interested in a one-on-one demo. Complimentary. You just want some more information to see how this could work for you? Go ahead and click on yes. I will leave this up for a couple of seconds here. Well, for a minute before I move us on. In the meantime, let's go ahead and jump into the Q&A. We've got some questions in here. Can you show us how sales commissions are managed in payroll?
Sure, this is Daryl Liu speaking. So there's a couple of different ways, although we don't have an example prepared for you today. They typically can be done one of two ways. There are fields which can be configured on the employee compensation tile. that would allow entry into the system, which would then be processed by payroll. You're probably thinking the next question is, how do those amounts or those figures get into the system? And they can be done certainly any number of ways, through a mass upload, or if it's based on the result of a calculation from a sales and commission solution, then we provide a variety of connectors or APIs into our system so that the payroll can process them appropriately. And as Claudia mentioned earlier, the capabilities of our solution enable us to be able to accumulate and tax those commissions or those bonus amounts differently if that's, again, based on your business process. So hopefully that gives you a little bit of an idea.
Thanks so much, Daryl. All right, next question. How can we configure payslip customization in SuccessFactors? Is it from R3, or is there any separate configuration exists to do in SuccessFactors?
So the configuration for the pay statement is actually done within Employee Central Payroll. It is a fully contained configuration set that allows you to not only brand, but also include any level of detail that's required on your pay statement. And this may be due to a combination of factors regarding your company requirements, as well as those customers who regularly deal with bargaining units and unions, where there's a high degree of detail that needs to be documented. But to answer your specific question, it is the configuration for their pay statement is actually done in Employee Central Payroll.
And Daryl, could you comment on the global capabilities?
Sure. So I think we kind of glossed over it a little bit earlier in that slide before we went into the demo. Claudia did mention that, but we want to reinforce the fact that the solution we presented today is global in nature. Global means something very, very significant to us at SAP SuccessFactors, in that not only do we deliver the system with out-of-the-box fields, but also editing criteria. And then when it comes to payroll specifically, we deliver out-of-the-box compliance for payroll calculation, taxation, accumulation, and any forms that need to be generated for those 41 countries. The compliance comes from us, and what's also key is that we actually have a number of developers who are located throughout the globe that actually work with SAP SuccessFactors. They are our employees and part of our development organization. So you're getting these updates from the source, and more importantly, the manner in which those updates are delivered is through our own, again, through the SAP SuccessFactors Upgrade Center. And of course, this being a cloud-based solution, it also means that those updates are applied for you on your behalf. So again, that allows organizations or customers of Employee Central Payroll to focus on the business at hand instead of having to be encumbered with the IT or the more IT kind of infrastructure types of activities, which we think add to more time, cost, and complexity.
Great. All right. We got a series of questions here. This person is new to SuccessFactors and wants to know how SuccessFactors Payroll is different from Payroll and SAP. Is it a replacement for SAP Payroll? If they already use SAP Payroll, can the information in SAP, assuming there's no customizations, be transferred to SuccessFactors Payroll?
That's a great question. So the short answer to that is the Employee Central Payroll is basically the on-premise or the SAP traditional payroll engine that we ported to the cloud. What that means for you is you have all the computing power and the configuration and the flexibility of a payroll solution that's actually been proven in the marketplace for over 20 years. As far as customers who are currently on-premise, there are a number of ways for them to be able to migrate or transition from an on-premise environment to the cloud. One of the prerequisites, of course, would be that the Employee Central is a primary component or a foundation for the payroll piece. That means for any traditional legacy customers of SAP, they would need to take the personal administration, or as we know it in the old days, PA, and implement Employee Central, which would basically be the core HR piece, and that does include components of payroll fields.
Can the payroll administrator view the workflow after, for example, submitting the compensation increase request?
Yeah, absolutely. Although we did not get into it today, you probably may have noticed right off the bat that the user experience is significantly different than many of our customers have experienced with our on-premise enterprise solution. Not only this applies to configuration and enabling these different tiles, but also the editing and the visibility. So here's an example. I could actually call up an employee record and I could view their history. I could also see the before and after images, and I could see the date chain all on a single screen. For those data changes that involved a workflow or an approval, I can also view not only the approval, but also the approval chain. And again, we allow our users to, actually we enable our users to be able to have this capability all on one screen, but also without the requirement of jumping back and forth or typing in different transaction numbers or going through a very, very complex menu navigation system. So you'll notice that, again, it's very, very significantly enhanced. It's very updated, and it also kind of mirrors a lot of the user experience and technology that many of our users are experiencing outside of their business life.
All right, we've got a complex question here. After payroll process is complete, this person has a need to A, package some specific payroll information, B, it needs to be in the form of a text file, and C, they need to then send it to a third-party vendor. What out of this is supported by SuccessFactors?
Well, the short answer to that is the all of the above. As with any implementation, we're probably going to take a look at, again, that target system requirement. If there was a way for us to be able to extract the payroll results and send that to a third party, that could actually all be done, through a workflow, which can then be configured. However, if you feel you need or you have a business requirement to extract the payroll results and format them in a spreadsheet, we have a variety of connectors and templates that are available. And this also applies to any customers who are not leveraging the SAP Financials or the financial engine from S/4HANA for GL and financial postings. So again, we have a wide variety of tools, templates, and methodologies to extract the payroll data. Those are all based on, again, some normalized tables. So again, that's been a recent improvement and an innovation for us. So, and all that means is the data is easier to get at, it's standardized, and again, we're going to deliver a methodology to allow you to get at that data when you need it.
In the example provided of Julian needing to update payroll data, how is the payroll process for him later? Should this be a manual submit of payroll or by the payroll coordinator? Is it done as part of the off-cycle run?
Yeah, so there's a couple of different options that are available. After the off-cycle has been run, and again, as Claudia mentioned, the off-cycle can be run for one individual employee, or it can be run for multiple or groups of employees in the event that you want to do a bonus run or a mass update. So that the output of that, again, can either be to go ahead and carry out the postings from a finance perspective, or if you have a one-off or just a couple or a handful of transactions, you can wait for the next payroll cycle to run through, and then those off-cycle transactions would be included as part of the payroll results. It's entirely up to you. And that's one of the flexibilities of having the Employee Central Payroll, is it's basically payroll on demand. It's really when you want it, how you want it, and then it can mirror the capabilities or your very basic payroll process. And we recognize and appreciate the fact that every payroll organization is different. In fact, we have many customers who have varying degrees of business processes even in the same organization because they are global. So the flexibility and the configuration of that system allows for that. And that does include things like multi-company structures, general ledger postings, and consolidation of payroll results.
Could you recommend a book or manual to learn about the latest version of SuccessFactors?
There are a number of books that are basically out there. I think for those customers who have an existing SAP SuccessFactors footprint, the best place to start would be the online help. That's going to provide you with a wealth of information as well as conversion guides, configurations, admin guides, as well, so that'll give you the background information that you need to get started, kind of give yourself a couple of ideas around how you would approach not only the conversion, but give you a more in-depth view of the system capabilities. For those customers who are not SAP SuccessFactors customers, my recommendation would be to navigate to the SuccessFactors webpage. Our homepage includes a variety of blog posts, documentation, brochures, and even short video clips. So definitely stay tuned. We're constantly updating and providing you with information regarding our latest enhancements and updates, as well as reaching our new customer base.
Fantastic. All right, we have a hybrid solution, an on-premise SAP HR system and cloud-based SuccessFactors solution for talent management. Do we need to have Employee Central for the employee payroll module to work?
The short answer to that is yes. You do need the Employee Central core component of HR in order to take advantage of the cloud version for payroll. Again, those two are intimately connected, and the integration between those two components is, again, out of the box and a hallmark of our solution. We do have opportunities for customers who are looking at transitioning their on-premise or their their on-premise HR and payroll systems to the cloud. Again, this can be tailored to your specific needs. If you have an SAP account executive or a client service executive, my recommendation would be to reach out to them first, as they would be most intimately knowledgeable about your landscape. And then you might want to go ahead and carry out some discussions regarding your migration plan and your overall objectives.
All right. And sort of related, I guess, if we don't have an SAP HCM payroll right now, but we do have Employee Central, can you use this solution?
Absolutely. Again, that's a great way of implementing a total cloud solution. Many of our customers will take that same approach. They're going to start out with the basics with respect to Employee Central first. It sets the foundation. And not only that, if you think about it too, from a user experience perspective and a change management perspective, you're taking very small, very measured and deliberate steps to get you to the cloud. You have the basics in place, which is Employee Central. The next step in your cloud journey might be to go to Employee Central and to leverage more with what you have in a payroll environment.
Fantastic. Well, we're reaching the top of the hour, so I want to thank you for joining us today. A big thanks to our speakers, Daryl Liu and Claudia Freeman. And to you, our audience, we thank you for your time and participation. Would you like to sign up for a complimentary one-on-one demo with SAP? In a few moments, a voluntary survey will pop up asking for your feedback on today's session and includes a way to schedule a one-on-one demo. This is a great way to reach out and ask for more personalized information, as well as to help shape our future webinars. Just a reminder that today's demo has been recorded and we'll be sending out a link to the replay in the coming weeks. We hope that you'll join us for our demo next week, which will cover workforce analytics and planning. There's a link to register for that demo, along with the rest of the series located in the resource list. Again, thank you for joining in today's session. Have a great day.